It's this week Parashat Tzav. We took a look and brought a view of the Parsha. We saw that the Parsha, for some reason, again, goes into detail about the different Korbanot, even though we saw these same Korbanot last week in Parashat Vayikra. Why is the Torah repeating these Korbanot again?
Yeah, we really tried to understand why couldn't we just merge the two Parshas together, talk about the Olah, talk about the Chatat, and we tried to look at the differences, maybe the word that separates between the two Parshas, and what we can learn from that.
Exactly. There's one specific word we focused on throughout the video, the big difference between this week's Parasha, last week's Parasha. It is a very important word. We say this word in every single one of our videos. You really want to take a look. Hope you enjoy it. So yes, this week, Parashat Tzav. When you look in the Parasha, you will notice that the beginning of the Parasha, at least the beginning of it, talks about the different Korbanot that were brought in Beit HaMikdash. Korban Shlamim, Korban Olah, Korban Chatat, Korban Hasham. And when you look at the Parsha, it is very similar to Parashat Vayikra that we read last week. Also there, we met all the Korbanot. The Torah went into detail about all the Korbanot last week too. So, number one, you have to ask, what is the difference between the different parashot? When you see the two parashot, obviously there's a difference between them. So what is that difference? What is that difference about? Number two, on top of that is, okay, why are we saying it in two different parashot? Why are the korbanot being taught in two different parashot? Why not put them all together into one parasha? Why not teach everything together at the same time? So what is going on over here in Parashat Tzav? Why are we repeating the korbanot again? What is the difference between them, and why not put them all together in the same place?
Yeah, it is strange. I mean, why not just give us Korban Olah and everything we need to know about Olah, and then Korban Chatat and everything we need to know, etc. Really breaking this up into some halachot showing up here, some repeating themselves is really confusing. And I think if we look at the two parshas, at how they begin, we'll first notice one big difference. Vayikra is Moshe Rabbeinu speaking to Am Yisrael, whereas Tzav is Moshe Rabbeinu speaking to the Kohanim. So one is what Am Yisrael needs to know, and one is what the Kohanim need to know. But even then, it's still confusing. Why are these details something which the Kohen doesn't need to know? There's many halachot that show up in Vayikra that also the Kohen needs to know, and there are things in Tzav like who eats what, which also, the person eating is going to need to know what he's allowed to eat, what he's not allowed to eat. So it's still confusing. What is the difference? And I think that there's one word that repeats itself over and over and over in Parashat Tzav and doesn't show up at all in Parashat Vayikra. It really stands out. And that is the word Torah, a word we know so well. Torah, we're learning Torah. Shows up in Parashat Tzav almost every single korban. Zot Torah Ta'olah, Zot Torah Chatat, Zot Torah Shlamim. And we don't see this in Vayikra. Vayikra just tells us about the korban. If you did a sin and you need to bring a korban for that sin, so you bring a chatat. And if you want to do this, every one of those korbanot, there's the reason, and then there's what you do. Here, it's something else. It's the Torah of chatat, the Torah of shlamim, the Torah of olah. What does that word actually mean? We use it so much. What does that mean? I mean, we know we have chukim, we have mishpatim, we have mitzvot. What does Torah mean, actually? And I think if we understand what Torah means, we'll understand why it shows up here, maybe really what the difference between the two parshas are. And there are many places where the concept Torah shows up. Already in Bereshit we have it, and when talking about Avraham Avinu, who keeps the chukim and the mishpatim and the Torot, and we have this in Shmot several times. And if you really try to look at all the different times and put them all together, I think the main idea is the following. Torah shows up in the concept of lehorot. Lehorot is maybe why we call today the teacher, the moreh. A teacher is a moreh. It's the one who guides you. We have also in Hebrew, a guide, a tour guide is a moreh derech. And actually in Yitro, we see when he tells Moshe what he's going to do, he was explaining to him why he should have, the different roles. And he talks about Moshe Rabbeinu. He says, and you'll teach them the mitzvot, v'torot, v'haderech yelchuba. You're going to teach them the path they should go. I think Torah connects to that idea of not just a list of rules, a list of laws. Torah is already a path. It's a path that leads somewhere. The path has a certain way you go through. You don't go right or left. You have to go on that path. But a path also leads somewhere. There's a goal at the end. And maybe that's the concept of Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu says in Dvarim, "Umi goy gadol asher lo chukim u'mishpatim tzadikim kechol haTorah azot." Meaning, there may be other nations who have laws, but not a Torah. A Torah, that's what you have. These aren't just a list of laws. These are things that will help you reach the end goal, which is coming close and bringing the whole world closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if we understand that, maybe that's exactly the difference between Vayikra and Tzav. Vayikra, as we said, is turning to Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael, this is your opportunity to bring a korban, to come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Korban, as we've mentioned in the past many times, is lehit karev, is to come close. This is your opportunity. If it's a sin and you want to fix it, if it's something good that happened and you want to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's Vayikra. This is what you do. And as we know, the person bringing the korban is Am Yisrael, is whoever wanted to bring that korban or needed to bring that korban. Even the one slaughtering the korban, which seems to be an important part of the korban, that too we know is something that not the Kohen needs to do. Kohen can do, but not necessarily. The person bringing the korban could do the shechita. What does the Kohen do? That's the next stage. The next Parsha is teaching the Torah. The role of the Kohen is to take your desire to come close, is to take your actions and help lead you to the right place. We know that Am Yisrael had a desire to come and meet HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but when it went out of control, we ended up with Chet HaEgel. And the Levim were the one who didn't sin in Chet HaEgel, and they were the ones there to try and help us come out of that sin. And now the Kohanim have the role to take that desire and take Am Yisrael wanting to bring that korban, but to turn it into a Torah, to give them that path, to be that guide on the path. How do you take this desire and do it the way it should be and lead it to the right place? And therefore, maybe that's why in this Parsha, in Tzav, we have the description of what each person eats. There's one korban that only the Mizbeach eats, the fire eats. There's one that also the Kohanim have their part. There's one that also Am Yisrael have their part. Making sure everything finds its place. Taking that korban and saying, okay, this should only go there. This should be also there and also there. This should find its place in the right way. That's the role that the Kohanim have here. Not to switch us, not to do it instead of us, not to do the korban for us, to take our korban and help us really make sure it gets to where it needs to get. To make sure this isn't just random actions, even random laws that we invent, to make sure these are laws, these are korbanot, these are actions. This is a ceremony which really leads us to what it's all about, is the meeting between Am Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is the Shekhinah that comes down into the Mishkan. This is the Mishkan, and this is the Kohanim in that Mishkan. This is their role after Parashat Vayikra, to really make sure to take that into Parashat Tzav.
Very good, very good. It's interesting you are focusing on that word Torah, Zot Torah Tachatat, Zot Torah Ta'olah, the Torah, using the word Torah to try to show the big difference between the two parashot here, because like you're saying, we're used to the Kohanim having a job in Am Yisrael of being the ones to bring the sacrifices for us in the Mishkan, in the Mikdash, being the ones to do the actual job of Shechita and putting it onto the Mizbeach and doing everything around it. But really, the Kohanim, as we've said several times already in the past, had a bigger job and a bigger purpose in Am Yisrael, like you're saying, which is to teach Am Yisrael, to be there, like you're saying, to lead the way, to guide the way for Am Yisrael. And there's a very famous Gemara that says about Beit HaMikdash, Makom HaMikdash, the mountain, Har HaMoriah, was called by Abraham Avinu Har Hashem Yera'eh. And the Gemara explains Moriah, but also Yera'eh from the same idea, which is Lehorot Hora'ah, to teach a teaching, just like you're saying, to teach Am Yisrael. And this is what the word Torah is from. The word Torah is from the same shorish of Hora'ah, the shorish of Yud Resh Hey. They both come from the same word. They both mean to guide Am Yisrael. That's the job of the Kohanim, but that's also the job of the Torah for us in our day-to-day life, to guide our lives, but much more than just guide. As we're just coming off Purim this week, Purim, we have Layudim Haita Ora V'Simcha, the famous pasuk and the famous Gemara that says Ora Zot Torah. Layudim Haita Ora, the Jewish people, the Jewish nation had the light, and the light, the Gemara explains, is the Torah. Now, it's not just a play on words that sound the same. It's not just a play on Ora, Torah, or Aleph, which is replaced with the Atbash, with the same letter, but at the end with the top. So Ora and Torah really replace itself. But the Torah is the light. And the light you need is when you have a path and you're walking in a dark world, you're walking in a dark place, you need the light, first of all, to show you the way. And then you need also the light in order to guide you and to be that point that you are leading yourself towards. You need both the light to see where you're walking, but you also need that light at the end of the tunnel to show you where you're heading to show you the direction you should go. That's what Torah is. And as we've said also many times, the word light in Hebrew, or, is the same. Matria, the numeric value, is the same as Ein Sof, as no ending. And the or is something, the light is something that wraps around everything and contains everything in it. That's what light is. Light is not only for guiding us and for showing us the way. As we know, the sun also gives us the ability to breathe. The sun is what allows for the air to be created in the world. That is Torah. Torah is everything. Torah is what guides us, but it's also what pushes us throughout the way. It's what gives us the motivation to walk on the path, but it's also that light at the end that we are directed to. That's what Torah means. And very interestingly, in Hebrew, we have another word that's very similar to the shoresh, to this word of hora'ah, of teaching, which is the word hore. Hey, vav, reshe. It's a little bit of a different root, but it's very similar. You could even think it's the same root, but hore in Hebrew is parent. And Rashi explains in Sefer Bereshit, by Yaakov Avinu's brachas, when he says Birkot Torah, when he uses that word, Rashi explains the word hore comes from the word pregnancy, from herayon, not from the word of teaching, but from the word of pregnancy. But that is the same idea. Because you have others explaining that the word hore comes from the concept of somebody who teaches you your learnings in life. And this is what a parent is. A parent is someone who creates you through herayon, through pregnancy, but it's also the same person who guides you throughout life, who teaches you throughout life which path to take, and is also your North Star to lead you throughout life, to show you where to go. This is the same thing with Torah. That's what Torah is for us. This is what Torah means. Torah is everything around you. Torah is what leads you throughout life, but is also what gives you the power to go and walk throughout the path of life. A parent's job is to lehorot the way that the child should walk through, is to lehorot et haderech that the child should walk and help the child walk throughout that way. Just as the Torah's job is, just as the Kohanim's job is not to walk the path instead of you, is not to be instead of you with a Korban, but to help you bring the Korban for yourself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is to connect you back towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the job of the Kohanim, whether it's by bringing the Korbanot, whether it's by bringing the Torah to Am Yisrael, by teaching the Torah to Am Yisrael, to allow Am Yisrael to have and be part of the Torah, to help Am Yisrael have the Torah that will influence their lives in order for them to live their best lives that they can live. This is what the Kohanim's job is, and this is what, as we keep on saying every single week, this is what the Torah is for us. It's there to guide us. It's there to help us with our own lives, to make sure that we're walking down the path. We have to walk with the North Star right in front of us, on top of us, guiding us throughout the way, and also pushing us from behind to give us the ability and strength to walk down the path. It's always there. It's always guiding us and is always protecting us throughout the way of life.
Yeah, exactly. And there's something interesting because there's one korban in the midst of all these Zot Torah Mincha and Torah Chatat and Torah Olah. There's one that doesn't say Torah. And it's the Mincha that the Kohen, Aaron Banav, bring on the Yemei Miluim as part of their becoming, filling this new role that they're going to fill in the Mishkan. But also later, the next Kohen, Gadol, who places, Aaron, he continues also to bring this korban. And it's interesting, why do we not have the Torah over there? But I think based on what we said, it makes all sense. Because what is the Torah? The Torah is when Am Yisrael is bringing their korban, and the role of the Kohen is to guide that korban to the right place. But here, the Kohen himself has to bring his own korban. He's not guiding someone else. He's first bringing his own korban. It's not about guiding Am Yisrael, but maybe it is, because maybe that's exactly the point. You know how you could be a guide for Am Yisrael? First, you need to bring a korban yourself. You need to bring a korban. You need to be able to do that yourself, and then you're able to also help others achieve that. Someone who's just in a role where they're on top and they're going to guide others without them being a role model, and also taking their own action to mitkarev, to bring their korban. They need to start with that. Once they've done that, they can really fill their role of bringing the Torah Mincha and Torah Olah, and being the one, as we said, to moreh, to teach, to guide, and to help our actions and our desires really reach the right place.
Excellent. Very good. There's much more we can continue talking about. The Torah, of course, and the Kohanim's job, and the will, the desire, and how do you build it? How do you create? How do you add more of it in order to want to learn more? But we're out of time, so we'll have to end here. Shkoyach Yitzi.
Shkoyach Tuvia, Shabbat Shalom.
Shkoyach to you, Shabbat Shalom, and Mitzvah Shem will come again.